that can't be addictive if that's not what's happening. What I would tell you is they are out in the street with the needle being held at the end of their life. Right? Now, can you overcome it? Sure. Sure. People have overcome their drug addiction. Why do people think drugs are addictive? So I should be doing it. That's crazy. It's entertainment. But you can become addicted to people who so we can continue to do what we want to do and not feel judged, but point the finger at the dirty person who's begging outside the store because they're looking to buy booze. That's why we did it. That way your 6 glasses of wine at dinner when you get home is an addiction. Michael Jordan once said that once. Do you have a gambling addiction? You know what he said? No. If I did, I'd be selling my house, I'd be selling my cars, I'd be selling this, I'd be selling that. Mike, no. You're justifying the behavior. That right there, normally the first sign, right? Normally the first sign, a little defensive. Oh my God, you're a little defensive. Not me, not my thing, no. There's step number 1, baby. We just admitted it. This is what I love about people. You look up and down the world and you see somebody in a situation maybe a little less than yours. And you think to yourself, their addictions and their bad decisions and their this led you there. But everything you do in your life every single day isn't a problem. Why? Because you haven't lost your house over it? You realize there are other problems in life before you start losing your job, right? You also realize that's where terms like this came from. Functioning alcoholic. Oh, sorry, boss. I didn't know about terms like that one. That's where that, yes, negative effects will be in life. They may not necessarily destroy your entire life. Beyond that thought process, what I would tell people is this. Why in hell would you ever wait until you were living on the street before you started to address a problem you had? It's 330-450-7625 to send a text to the studio. Every Monday at 8 o'clock, we talk to the co-founder of WaitingForNextYear.com, my buddy Scott. He can also be found on his X platform at WFNY. Scott, my man, how are you this Monday morning?
Doing well, man. Another weekend in the books.
Amen. It's never long enough, those weekends. No matter how much time it is, never quite long enough. Excited to speak with you this morning because we do have some NBA news, and you were way more tied into the NBA than I am. But J.J. Redick now gets hired as the Lakers coach. And look, plenty of people have been hired without a whole lot of coaching experience, before getting a, pretty big job. Some may say that about Stephen Vogt, who, took over the management position with the guards. We'll get to them here in a second. But this guy, J.J. Redick, does do a podcast with LeBron, so I don't think this is doing a whole lot to dial down that LeBron is running the Lakers. If this thing doesn't go well, who gets more blame here? Jeannie Buss or LeBron James? Scott?
Well, I think you know enough to...
It's LeBron, right?
Over the last several hires, LeBron has found a way to distance himself from responsibility.
He is pretty good at that, yeah.
Interestingly, so I mean, if we look at the Lakers in general, right? Win a title with and then they can him the next year, bring in Darvin Ham, and they make it the conference finals, and they can him, and then, so it's an interesting experiment. You were right. There are plenty of coaches, Steve Kerr among them, who
right out of the booth,
from broadcasting right into head coaching, right? And we talked about it the last couple of weeks. The names you're hearing for the Cavaliers are not Monty Williams and the sort of retread coaches. They're talking to all these sort of upstart assistants who, trying to find like the next Mike Malone, right? Like bench coach for the Cavaliers for a long time, had it, former player, so he will scrutinize market. I think will right now look pretty foolish, but it looks back when this first happened. I have Vincent, then great. Let's get him hired. Let's get the press conference done, and then let's get work. So it can happen. And then the Cavaliers are going to be,
especially it's make that stuff.
The phone calls are being made or the texts are being sent.
Oh yeah.
Or in LeBron,
you might have a real shot here. The right move for the guards would be.
Yeah, there's a weird around that, right? Because there has been years where you and I have, man, their pitching is great if they could just figure out.
They could just hit,
right?
Yeah.
And they could just, and they have arguably Connie in some hitting categories. So they have that part figured out, and then of course once they get that part clicking, it seems like okay, well, what about the starting arms? There's some stats out there, Dan, that have them at like 30th in like starting pitching, right?
Wow.
Depending upon what metrics you look at. Which
I didn't know that.
And when there's four teams in the AL Central above 500, like you need to keep this going, right? You can't afford, but probably the first time this season,
amongst the generations, right? What people thought was funny 10 years ago, secretly, not so great, right? A little intolerant, maybe clean it up, but let's not do that, right? So that's part of that. And there are going to be many other differences in people. And we all have little minor annoyances. And one of mine is when people aren't punctual. I hate it. I've told the story before, but I went out drinking with a couple of buddies once. And I didn't know them all that well. These were guys that I, kind of got to, on 8:25, they said, man, when you say 8, you mean 8. I said, 8 o'clock means 8 o'clock. I'm punctual. Now that got handed down from my who hated the fact that I was lackadaisical and was not punctual. And so he beat that into me, not physically, but he just kind of beat it into us, David and I both. Right? Then I got in the radio business, or was at least trying to get into the radio business. And in the program that I went through to learn this industry, I had an instructor, a guy named Bruce Ryan, who I love dearly. And Bruce was an animated speaker, much like myself, and he would throw his arms around, he would pound on the table, and he would do things like the way, and I'm very similar. And he used to pound on that podium all the time and would say, on time is late. And in this industry, it would be. Show starts every morning at 6, really around 6:03, right around. There is something in this computer system that tells it he's in the studio. He's ready to take control. And if I am not here and that runs, everything stops. Now, my boss can get in remotely, and so if he finds out, oh, he's not there, blah, blah, it wouldn't necessarily be all day, but it would be an issue, right? I can be late. I just can't be real late. And in this industry, being punctual is a very important part, right? If we're hosting an event for you from 11 to 1, I can't show up at 11. We have to get set up. I'm probably there at 10:40, and then we'll get set up, and by then we'll be ready to go at 11. By the same token, I don't start packing up at 12:45 if it's 11 to 1 and be done at 1. No, we start packing up at 1. I'll get out of here about 1:20, right? It's kind of how it works. I bring it up because Gen Z thinks it's not rude to be late. Apparently, almost half of them, 46% of those, aged 16 to 26, which how you look at the world between 16 years old and 26 is going to change pretty drastically, right? I can't tell you how many things I thought at 16 I was going to think forever. Then I hit 26, I was like, nope. And I can't tell you how many things I thought at 26 I was going to think forever. And then sure enough, you get to 20 years later, it's like, nope, not even close. But half, 46, or just under, 46% of those kids, age 16 to 26, say that being between 5 and 10 minutes late is perfectly acceptable. It's just as good as being punctual. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It may not be the biggest problem in the world depending on where you work. However, a line I like and a theory I like a lot, I'm going to borrow from another broadcaster. His name is Colin Cowherd. And he, once upon a time, had said this, and it's true. Your career is decided 90% of the time when you are not in the room. And how do you think they're deciding those things? Job performance is going to be one of them for sure. If you're in sales, is he selling? If you're in the ratings business like me, what are the ratings? If you're in sales and ratings business like I am, what are both, right? So job performance is going to be part of it for sure. Likability is going to be another, and punctuality is going to be on that list too. If you ever find yourself without a job and you think to yourself, why do I always get fired? And you don't think being 10 minutes late is a big deal, newsflash, that's why you got fired, right? Now, my guess is it wasn't the only reason, is it? Well, no. But if you think showing up late is perfectly acceptable, what is that? That's decision making. And you've just shown me what the rest of your decision making tree will look like. Probably not great. Now, when you start talking about millennials, those would be 27 to 42-year-olds, I'm told. 39% of them will forgive friends or colleagues for being up to 10 minutes behind schedule. You start getting to my generation, that would be Gen X. That drops to 26%. And 20% for baby boomers, 59 and over. Like, look, man, I'm sorry. No, you're not being late. So it seems as if the younger generations care less about this. I'm going to stop here and say that I think this is one of those things you don't care about maybe when you're younger, don't understand the ramifications of, and yet as you start to age, you're going to look at these kids who go, shut up, Gramps, it's 10 minutes, Gramps. You're going to look at them and talk about how being on time is very, very important. I don't think some things are changing in the office because younger generation kind of came in and said, dude, what are we doing with this? And we got to do that. Really, it's got to be this, and it has to be this, and plenty of stuff changed. I don't think this on the surface looks as if it's changing. I don't think it is. I think this is one of those things people think is okay. The younger you are, you start to get into your career a little bit more. You realize you were making a lot of mistakes early on in your career. You were saying a lot of things in the office you shouldn't have been saying. You were, showing up late when you shouldn't have been. And then you start to realize, oh, no, I had it kind of wrong. I got lucky to withstand all of that, but I had it being wrong. Now, again, this got passed down to me, the late thing, from my dad, because he just hated it so much. And so maybe that's why I'm as strict about this as I am. Here's the thing about being late. I went down the hallway and I asked a guy who, he is younger than I am. He is just now about 40. That's younger than me. And I said to him, is 10 minutes late? And he said to me, well, technically, but it might be all right. And I said, well, what would make it okay? And what Tony said to me is, if you tell me you're going to be late, then all of a sudden the 10 minutes doesn't matter. And I said, well, wait a minute, but that's not late if you ask me. If you tell me before you're late, this would be me now, not him. If we're supposed to meet at 9 a.m. and you text me at 9 o'clock and tell me you're going to be late, you already late and I'm mad. I'm sitting in that restaurant fuming, and I mean fuming, right? Now that's my problem, not necessarily yours. But if you text me at 10 till 9 and go, yo, sorry, there was more traffic than I thought, or I got out of that meeting late, or this and that, if you alert me to what's happening, now all of a sudden you are not late. Because you've told me that. Waiting until after you're late to tell me you're going to be late? I'm sorry, now you just did two things that pissed me off instead of just the one. 9 a.m. this morning, what would a man rather tell his feelings to, a woman or a tree? We'll get there. This stems out of the would you rather run into a man or a bear conversation that women have had. We now have the male version of this. What we have been talking about is being late, and I don't enjoy this. I like punctual people. I'm into it. Dan has written in and says, early is on time, is late, and late is unacceptable. That's my old GM used to tell us that. You had a good old GM there. Taylor says, I'm a millennial here because it was broken down by age range. Gen Z, the younger generation, I think those are 16 to 26-year-olds. They seem to be really lenient on this. But Taylor says, I'm a millennial here. If you're 5 to 10 minutes late for work, I instantly have lost respect for you. As far as friends go, I'm always going to be close to 10 minutes early. That's my minimum. But I understand being up to 10 minutes late if we're just getting together because of kids and all of that kind of stuff. They don't always listen. But if you get them moving early and on, to be on time. But I agree, let me know if you're going to be late ultimately. Yeah, like, look, especially when you're talking, work's a different thing, right? This is kind of tough because we're having, a couple of different conversations about being late, right? Because you have multiple relationships. You have a work relationship, you have personal relationships and the like. Yes, it's less of a problem with like a friend group. but you're still wasting people's time. Like, my ex and I used to have this argument all the time because having lunch together was one of the ways we would spend our time. And we were meeting after, normally I was done with work. She was taking a little hiatus in the middle to have her lunch. And so I understood that there was going to be some times where she wasn't going to get out of a meeting fast enough, or it was the restaurant was a little further away for her than it was for me, or whatever the thing should be. But why she always made me so goddamn crazy. Hey, let's meet at noon. Okay, 12:05. I'm gonna be late. No, you're not gonna be any damn thing. You already are late, and that made me crazy. You tell me at 10 till noon, hey, sorry, it's not gonna be quite noon, I'm fine. But you know me as a person, you don't, but she did. I'm here early enough where I'm parked, I'm in the restaurant, I'm seated waiting on you. Don't have me sitting here looking like an idiot because you can't be bothered to look at your wrist once an hour to find out what goddamn time it is. Like, made me crazy. Made me absolutely crazy. And Jody says, dude, being late is the thing I can't have. My ex-wife made us late for every single thing we ever went to. I hate it. Yeah, I'm not the only person who has ever said this, but, I had this line I used to use on the show all the time about one of the women I have dated, and you're picking up a theme here. It's almost like women are always late to every damn thing. But one of the women I always dated was, again, she was just late. I don't know why I pick people who do things that make me crazy. I think it's because everything makes me crazy and I'm insane, right? Like, I think maybe that might be the problem, right? Rob might beat me. But I was talking about that. And once upon a time, she had said to me in an argument about something else, I love you. I would do anything for you. And I turned around in my living room and I said, cool story, learn to get ready in 20 minutes. Like, if you love me and you'll do anything for me, be on time just once, baby. Just one time. It makes me absolutely crazy. It's less of a problem if you're doing it with your friends than if you're, because look, if somebody's having a party at their house and they say 9 o'clock, nobody means 9. It's like, show up at 9:15. That's different. Work is a responsibility. Your friends groups aren't necessarily responsibilities. You may have a responsibility to them if you've agreed to do something or whatever. If you can't be somewhere you are supposed 5 days a week, by the way, at the right time, I have an issue. And you're not going to get a whole lot of sympathy out of me about it. The reason is because I work at an ungodly time of the morning. Some of you do too. Canton's a very early working city. It is. I've seen all the data on it. But my alarm goes off at 4:15. I don't want to hear from an adult about how you can't wake up to an alarm or you can't do. I don't want to hear about it. I'm sorry, no. Right? If making money is important to you, then being on time is going to be important. I think actually that if we're all going, not we're all, because I won't, but a lot of you are going to be working from home and the like, the more often we're doing that, or the further we go into that, the more important being on time is going to be. Because all of your meetings are going to happen via the computer. Versus like, all right, the meeting's underway. I didn't need the first 2 minutes of this anyway, but now everybody's going to stop like this thing. Like, that's going to be a problem. You're going to have to actually be more punctual. I kept saying, you think you want to work at home until you do. Everybody, all these corporate overlords, CEOs, and they're overreach and they don't respect me and this and that. You think it's going to be better when they're paying you to be in your own damn living room? You think it's going to be better with that? I disagree. I think it's only going to be worse with that. I think, like I said, this is one of those things that the younger generation's not okay with this. They just think they are. When they hit your age, they're going to realize, oh my God, I've been wrong about this my entire life. 330-450-7625 to send a text to the studio. You can also use that microphone talkback button when you listen live on iHeartRadio. Another easy way to interact with the show as well. All right, I remember it was a few months ago, and we ended up talking about it more than one day because there's so many points in it, but there's this thought process or, exercise that people will do. What would a woman rather run into, a bear or a man? And it's all about how dangerous men can be, right? Sometimes what some women had told me is, well, you have to think about it because the bear can be dangerous. And too many people just think, oh, another human's going to be okay. We don't think about the fear or the danger other people are putting you or can put you. Fair, right? Fair, I could understand that. You know, a lot of other people, one woman told me, well, the bear might run away from you. It's like, well, plenty of men are afraid of women, and so may run away from you as well, right? Like that could be a thing. Other women had written in and told me, well, a bear's not going to, you know, just walk up next to me and start giving me advice on what I'm doing. And that is kind of a thing men do with women. This went viral a couple of months ago where there was an LPGA player. She's a professional golfer, was at a driving range, and she's absolutely striping it because she's an LPGA player. A guy in the booth next to her who hadn't hit a ball well all day turned to her and said, if you rotate your hips, if you do this, start giving her tips. It's like, now, that can be a gendered thing. I can tell you, people love to give you unsolicited golf advice. It happened to me Thursday night. I was having one of the worst rounds of my life. The guy waited till the last hole, and I turned to him and said, no, dude, just shut up. I don't need another swing thought in my head. I don't. Right? So I think that could have just been one of those, maybe not necessarily gendered, but it was viral, and so I figured we would mention that in this. There's another version of this now, but it's men trying to figure out what they would rather tell their emotions to. A woman or a tree. Now, women, I assume some of you just went, oh, and got a little offended. To which I'll say, well, relax, because when you tell men if they get offended by hearing women would rather run into a bear than a man, that you tell them when they get offended by that, well, you feel called out by your behavior. It's accountability culture, not cancel culture, right? And you get all up in arms about that. Well, could I not flip that coin over and say if a man's not willing to, you know what I mean? He'd rather tell his feelings to a tree than a woman. If you feel called out by that, it might be your behavior coming back to bite you in the ass a little bit. Why are men saying this? Well, it goes along with something I've said about why I have relationship problems my entire life and career here. I've told you this. What have I said about me? That plenty of times in my life and in yours, you've heard women say things like, I just want a guy who will open up and talk to me. I do that. Let me just tell you, they lying. Baby, they lying. And I've called them lunch line bullies. They threaten you, we need to talk. Where are we going? What is this? What is this? But if you turn around, you want to get in depth in those conversations, they don't know what to do. Much like a bully. You turn around and go, nah, bitch, I'm keeping my lunch money. They ain't gonna do nothing. And neither's your wife. She ain't got it. She ain't got that argument. She knows you live in fear of it. And so it's a power play. Handy. There is a large portion of men online who say, never cry in front of a woman. Once you do it, she's going to lose respect for you. That's true. Is it true of all women? It is, of course, not. Much like not every man is a danger to you in the bear scenario either. Are a lot of them? Sure. Are more women guilty of the, I want a guy who can be in touch with feelings, until you get one and then you realize, that's not what I want at all? Yes. Look at Taylor Swift. She tried all them crying after sex dudes like John Mayer. Wrote 11 albums about how they all suck. One got her a football player now, though. Look at her. Happy she got a man now, right? She got a man. All of a sudden, she's happy now. Look how that works. Look how that works. There is truth in this. That some women, if they see a man cry, it's over. Some women, if you admit fear. Like, there are men online who say you should never show your wife you're afraid of anything ever. Well, I think that's a little far. What I would say is I don't think it's about an entire gender of people, much like the bear in the woods argument. This isn't all women. But you may have to date more than one person until you find out the person you should be with. So if you're an emotional person, if you're a person who wants to talk about things, if you want to flesh everything out, then don't go get you one of those lying-ass broads who are telling you they want one thing but secretly want another. By the way, that's not a woman's problem. That is a human being's problem. More often than not, people don't know what they actually want. They think they know until you give it to them, and then they didn't want that. So if you're with a woman you feel as if you can't be honest with, then leave said woman. She's not the woman for you. It's that simple. By the way, this is not necessarily the same thing as the bear and the man in the woods argument. Because most guys aren't just going to walk up to a stranger, man or woman, and start dumping their purse out about their feelings. That's not going to happen. I might. You know how many dudes listen to me every day that call me simp every single day because I admit I have feelings about women, that women have made me sad. Oh my God, I had my heart broken once, because I'm alive. But you know how many idiot dudes out there think like that? Plenty. Which is where the example comes from. And there are plenty of idiot women out there too. This is one of those things that kind of is a double standard here, right? We look at men like just boys in men's bodies, just boys in a man's body, not a man, boy. You realize women can be little girls in a woman's body, right? Right? That can happen. You ever date somebody and you think to yourself, how do you not know how to do this? That's a child in an adult's body. There it is. So yes, do I know plenty of dudes who got burned because they thought, oh, well, she's telling me she wants this, she wants that? Yeah. A buddy of mine, high school friends of mine, got divorced because she kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing. She felt like he was hiding something. Wasn't necessarily hiding something from her. He was just trying to be strong for her because he knew who his wife was. She pushed, she pushed, she pushed. Sure enough, he showed her that weakness, baby, and I mean just one time. And she exploited the living hell out of it and destroyed his life and took everything because of it. Now, I know I can say that because I know their story and you don't. Like, I know them. Is that indicative of all women? Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. But do I understand why men feel as if I can't tell a woman something? Yeah, for sure I do. Because so many of them have tried, and it has absolutely backfired because rub some dirt in it, sissy! 330-450-7625 to text your studio. You can also reach me using that microphone talkback button on iHeartRadio. Had been talking about this thought exercise. The whole man versus bear thing that women kind of put, themselves through, that thought process or exercise there. And now men are, what would I rather